Let's fire up JP Cam and welcome in MLB Network insider Jon Morosi. All right, John, tough act to follow here as you're coming in off of the hot Christopher Russo.
I just texted him. I said, we're going to fight over Mariota.
All right, so Harold is still simmering. Your thoughts just quickly before we jump into some other topics, but your thoughts here on what the Yankees are doing with Pettit, Williams, and Posada.
Well, Fran, the Yankees should have the most retired numbers in baseball because they have the most championships of any franchise in major professional North American sports. So they have this right to do that. And, of course, this is a championship era, as you guys had talked about, that we are going to look back on as the closest thing we've seen to that Mantle era in Barra with all the championships. In this modern time, this is about as much of a dynasty as you're ever going to see. So the Yankees should be honored in this way. And if I can make a quick local point on this, I've always believed the Tigers should retire the numbers of Trammell and Whitaker. They still haven't done that. And some of the thought process there was, well, they should be in the Hall of Fame first. Well, in my opinion, the baseball writers have gotten it wrong on Trammell and Whitaker forever. They should both be in the Hall of Fame. So individual franchises should not necessarily take their cue from the brethren of Kenny and myself because we don't always get it right.
Amen.
And a little disagreement here between the colleagues, JP and Ken Rosenthal, having differences of opinion.
Yeah, this sounds like something we'll add in the roundtable. This sounds good. We got one coming up in March. All right, so what else we got?
You mentioned the Tigers here. Give us an update on Miguel Cabrera.
Well, Fran, today the Tigers should get some more news about Cabrera's condition. Now, he's been out of his boot for a month after undergoing that very extensive surgery on his right ankle and the top of his right foot. They're hoping that today is the day they'll hear that he can really resume full running workouts. Now, that is obviously a key consideration because to this point in time, he's been able to walk, he's been able to lift with his upper body, but he has not been able to run and do full baseball activity. Now, of course, we also know Victor Martinez having had the knee surgery on his part as well. So the Tigers now with serious concerns about both Cabrera and Victor Martinez. If they get some good news today on Cabrera and he can at least begin the running and that sort of thing, then at least there's a chance that they'll have both Victor Martinez and Cabrera back for opening day. But if there's any sort of delay with that, guys, you got to think Cabrera may be behind schedule because of how important it is to have your legs underneath you. And obviously, as I pointed out, he really hasn't been able to run at all this entire offseason. So this really adds to what I think is going to be a pretty anxious spring training there in Lakeland, Florida.
Yeah, and I'm a little concerned how much weight he might put on. You know, if you're not able to be mobile, he's got to get on a bike, he can't run. You know, and Jim Leland was like, don't worry about the weight. You're going to get to a point in time where I don't care who you are, you get to a certain age, you start to put that weight on. So I think that to me would be a big concern with Miggy moving forward.
It's a very fair point, Harold. And I think also you look at the grand scheme of things here, and Miguel Cabrera now has had surgery in consecutive off seasons. Of course, he had the sports hernia surgery after 2013. And you're right. You now think about that, how he hasn't really been able to go through a full offseason and get that body strengthening process going for 2 straight winters now. And you wonder if at some point in time that's going to catch up with him. Remember, last year had a bit of a slow start. I think certainly coming off of that surgery for the core muscles, that is part of it. But remember this about Miguel Cabrera, Harold. He has never been on the disabled list as a major league player. He debuted almost 12 years ago with the Marlins back there in 2003. He has never spent a single day on the disabled list. A very proud player. He is going to do everything he can to keep that streak alive of never spending a single day on the DL.
That's impressive.
JP, you wrote an interesting column on FoxSports.com about the leadership vacuum here with the Yankees because of Derek Jeter retiring, and you had an interesting suggestion as to maybe who could plug up that hole.
Yeah, Fran. Hey, the leadership role should then go to now the senior-most member of the Yankees, which is, of course, Alex Rodriguez. He is the longest tenured Yankee at this point in time. Now, there's going to be a lot of controversy here by me saying that. However, just hear me out on this. I think he's not going to necessarily lead in the way that Derek Jeter led for so many years, where he was the example of everything we wanted out of Major League Baseball players and, frankly, America's youth on and off the field. That's not what I'm talking about. But two things that Derek Jeter always did that A-Rod can do. Number one is he always absorbed the media attention onto himself and allowed the rest of his teammates to more or less go about their day in peace. Alex Rodriguez certainly can do that. The cameras, as we know, are going to find him in spring training and then again through the season. But also, and Harold knows this about Alex, Alex loves the game, and he loves talking about the game. He loves teaching the game. And these young infielders they're going to have in camp with the Yankees, Didi Gregorius, Jose Perella, Rob Refsnyder, A-Rod can talk about the nuances of playing the infield with them and mentor them in a certain way on the field. And I bet those young players are going to really soak up A-Rod's knowledge. Look, say what you will about him. He's been in the major leagues now for 20 years. He really knows the game, and I really think we're going to see that mentorship aspect of A-Rod come out this year. We can talk about the PED link, but that has not stopped Mark McGwire from becoming a very good hitting coach and Barry Bonds from being a guy that was in spring training with the Giants last year, helping the Giants' young hitters. So the fact that he had steroids in his past, much like Jason Giambi, for example, who for a long time was obviously criticized for his steroid use, but he got his second chance and yesterday retired as one of the most respected players in the game. So it can happen. There is a roadmap for A-Rod to get there and become, yes, a leader on this Yankees team.
It's real interesting. I know for years he's always taken those young guys under his wing. And one thing, McGwire, who else did you mention there? Giambi and
Bonds, Giambi.
Bonds. The one thing that he has different than all those guys, he speaks Spanish as well. So, it's interesting.
Yes.
But I don't know if the club would be ready for that, but I think Alex would welcome that big time.
The Pan American Games. Go ahead, JP, quickly.
I was just make one last point. It's interesting, Harold, that of the 9 position players on their team and the 5 starting pitchers, they may have only one homegrown player in Brett Gardner. So there's not that obvious next guy to take on Jeter's role as the homegrown leader of this team. So there is a bit of a vacuum there. They, of course, have some respected veterans, CC, Beltran, those guys, but not really that clear franchise player to lead things going forward.
Pan American Games are coming up here, and what could be, JP, the interesting wrinkle here for Team USA in terms of the composition of the roster?
Well, Fran, you know I love international baseball, and I'm especially excited about this because Major League Baseball is allowing minor league players to participate in this tournament as long as they are not on 40-man rosters. Now, this creates the possibility of a super prospect Team USA. This tournament's going to take place in Toronto, so logistically speaking, it's easier than if it was somewhere else further away, and so you could see the likes of Byron Buxton, Addison Russell, Joey Gallo. Chris Bryant, in all likelihood, is going to be on the Cubs roster by that point in time, so he probably can't play. But maybe Corey Seager at shortstop. Look at that pitching staff with Giolito and Glasnow and Rodon. Bradley. I mean, this could be a super prospect team. Now, this is happening around the same time, guys, as the Futures game for MLB as part of All-Star Weekend. That's actually around the first weekend of this tournament. So there may be a difference there where some guys go to the Futures game, some guys go to the Pan American Championships. But, guys, we talk about growing the game, and if you get some of these players now playing on a professional basis now for Team USA in the Pan Am Games against a tournament that will include, yes, Cuba's senior national team, which always makes things more interesting, I think you have a better chance to retain these young players the next time the WBC comes around in 2017, where they'd be more likely to represent Team USA again. So this is a really important moment, guys, for branding purposes of Team USA. And boy, wouldn't it be fun to have a team with the best prospects in America, with Seager and Gallo and Russell and all these guys playing against the Cuban national team for the gold medal. I think I'd want to tune in and watch that ball game.
Yeah, ditto. That would be awesome.
Good.
Jon Morosi with great stuff as always.